Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Olivia. I'm an account executive at Functionpoint, and I am here to go through a presentation on profitability with you today. The title of this webinar is called Show Me the Money, and it is all around finding the hidden profits within your agency. We're going to be running a couple polls throughout this. We're going to be offering some time for questions, but more than anything, we're going to go through a high-level overview of the Functionpoint system centered around those hidden profits that might exist within your agency. So without further ado, I'd like to kick it off. Okay, in terms of an agenda today, we're going to go through three main pieces. We're going to first start with some questions your agency needs to ask. This is going to be a section where we're going to poll you and ask for your participation in terms of those questions. The next piece is going to be centered around uncovering that profitability, and the third piece is going to be planning for success. So these are a couple of different things that we're going to go throughout the next maybe 15 minutes or so. Again, we encourage your questions and your participation. A little bit about Functionpoint. We have been working with over 600 agencies for over 20 years. We're located in Vancouver, Canada, and within the last year, we've doubled in size. The doubling in size really was centered around our development team so that we continue to develop our product in a way that our customers are going to continue to use it and utilize it to the best of its ability, and to really be able to help your agency gear up for success. All right, let's start with a couple of poll questions here. We're going to start with two questions. The first being, are you able to answer this? How much revenue did your last 3 projects make? I'm going to give everyone a minute here to submit their answer. An easy yes or no. All right, the answers are coming in. Give it maybe another 10 seconds. Interesting. Okay. All right, so based on the poll results here, we're able to see that 31% of agencies know the revenue of their last 3 projects. Safe to assume we likely have some accountants on the call, but 31% is pretty low. So that's kind of problematic in terms of understanding where your profitability sits. Let's move on to the next question briefly. Can you name which clients are costing your agency money? Again, we'll leave that poll open for maybe another 10 or 15 seconds. Great. Got a lot of answers flooding in. Awesome. Okay, we'll close it up at that. 65% of you know which clients are costing you money. Interesting. You typically know where the pain is. We find that around these two questions, the revenue question being the most interesting there, that people don't actually have insight into the projects that are making them or losing them money as they're moving through them. This is typically where accountants have a lot of understanding and maybe not so much project managers as we move through. In terms of that second question, you usually know where the pain lies. You can name the clients that are costing you money, that are making you go over time, that are making you go over budget. But what does that actually mean to your agency's overall profitability? All right, so let's speak to uncovering the profitability within your agency. Functionpoint itself is a financial first project management software. We call ourselves financial first for a couple of different reasons. The first being the fact that we're an all-in-one software that's going to allow you to have your estimates within the system so that as people start to track time against those estimates, you have insight into your actuals. Beyond that, we have a relationship with QuickBooks where your invoices are going to sync back to QuickBooks so that not only are you able to see your estimates at the beginning, but you're also able to see what you billed your client for at the end and analyze those two pieces of information against your actuals. Secondly, as I said, we're an all-in-one software, so you're going to be able to track your projects from start to finish. Everything's going to start with a company and end with an invoice so that you're able to move those projects through the cycle and be able to analyze them every step along the way. Finally, we're going to be creating visibility for teams and clients. The idea there is that everyone will have an idea of what's going on in terms of project schedules, project profitability, for example, and your clients can interact with you if that's something that you so choose. All right, so let's bounce into the software now. I'm going to turn on my demo system here. I've come into my demo system with full permissions. I have access to all the information within the system. And the first dashboard that I've taken us to is what I like to call an intelligence dashboard. This is giving me full insight as to what's going on within my agency right now. Not only do I have a clear picture of my profitability, but I have an understanding of where that profitability is coming from based on the fact that I have 46 jobs open, a number of them coming due or running late, and I'm able to see right from here how those jobs are doing in terms of their budget. The same thing goes with those tasks. What are people working on, and how utilized is my staff right now? Are we at full capacity, or do we have the ability to take on more work? Same thing goes for time. In an ideal world, we really want people to be tracking their time to as much billable things as possible. So keeping that piece of conversation in there to make sure that we know where our time is being spent. The main thing to keep in mind about the dashboards is they're going to be the first thing that you see when you come into the system. So you want to be able to pick and choose tiles that are going to help you do your job. So I'm going to navigate into a simpler dashboard that I've set up for somebody in a creative capacity. Within this dashboard, I have all the tasks and to-dos that have been assigned to me with the appropriate job that they're associated to and the amount of time that I've been given to complete those tasks in. I've also obviously got the appropriate due date there as well. Right from this dashboard, I'm able to track time against these tasks. You can track time a number of different ways. I can track time by duration. I could put in perhaps a 2-hour duration if I worked on this 2 hours before my lunch break. You can track time through a timesheet window that's going to run like a stop clock if I'm sitting working in Photoshop, for example. Staff can also track time on a daily or weekly basis if they're not necessarily required to track time in real time. The real advantage to this is that everything is going to tie back to that job, tie back to that service, to be able to give project managers insight into the job and how it's moving. This information ties right back to the job details dashboard. Every unique job within the system will have its own dashboard with its own moving pieces of information. The key thing to take away here is the health of the project. Project managers are able to see what they've estimated this project to cost. As staff members track time against their tasks, they're able to see how much of the budget is being eaten and how much of the project budget is left. As people start to complete tasks, they're able to monitor the tasks on the go to be able to see maybe what hasn't been started yet, what's still being worked on, and what's complete. These pieces are going to be really beneficial because that project manager is going to want to keep an eye on that variance there to ensure they have enough money in the budget to accommodate for all the tasks that have not yet been completed. Got the same piece here in terms of time. How much time is being tracked to this project? Is it billable work? Is it non-billable? Whatever it might be. But every unique job will have all of its moving pieces within this job dashboard as well. So let's look at this job's estimate. If I come in here, I'm able to see that I have an active estimate associated to this job. This estimate was created at the first stage, so I'm able to go through here and see all of the services that we assumed would go into making this project happen. I'm able to see them on a line-by-line basis in terms of the hours that we've associated to them and the cost. At any point in time, you can put in staff members with different rates. You can create blended rates based on the different rates that your staff members might have. If somebody's more senior or more junior, you can utilize those. You can also account for any flat fees that might be coming in from your side so that those are tied to the estimate as well. Beyond that, you're also going to maybe have external expenses. The idea here is that you're going to be accounting for those vendor expenses with the ability to mark them up and associate them to the estimate so that they're being accounted for right at the beginning. Again, the main piece to take away is those hours. So as we start to create this, we're going to have a total associated to this estimate. And that's what's going to tie back to that project health and that estimated total that your project manager might see here. Within each job, the other thing that you're likely going to keep an eye on is the financials tab. The idea of the financials tab is exactly what I said at the beginning of the webinar in terms of those 3 key pieces. That's your estimated amount of hours, your estimated amount of dollars, and then your actuals. As people start to track time against these tasks here, I'm able to see how well I did in terms of budgeting. For this research task, I budgeted 5 hours. I anticipated that to take 5 hours, and I billed the client or told the client that that was going to take or cost $500. As it happens, it actually took 8 hours. So I'm able to see what that did to my budget there. And I'm able to drill in further if I want to figure out who billed time to that service there. The final column that you'll likely want to watch as well is going to be that invoice column. This is going to be for accounting purposes to be able to see if you've collected payment at some point along the way, which services you've already billed for, how much of that service you've billed for, and how much you have left to be able to work with. The key thing of this, the key takeaway of this financials tab is going to be that idea of profitability and the ability to see into that job in real time as people track time against it. On the topic of invoices, let's go through and add an invoice because that's going to be the final checkbox in that financial first model that we talked about. Right from Functionpoint, you're able to associate an invoice to a job. You can collect payment 3 different types of ways: a deposit payment, an interim payment, or a final payment, and you can calculate that off of the estimate that you created or the actuals that people have tracked. By adding an invoice, I'm able to bill this client on a line-by-line basis based on those services that I estimated for at the beginning. I'm able to manipulate those totals if I so choose, but this invoice itself is going to map back to your QuickBooks account. Each of those services will map back to the correct chart of accounts on a line-by-line basis. You're able to associate back to the appropriate tax grouping within QuickBooks, and this invoice will map back to the appropriate AR account. The relationship between QuickBooks and Functionpoint acts like a handshake. Not only are you able to post these invoices to your accounting package, but when you receive payment on your QuickBooks side, you're able to look at that at the job level and you're able to see whether or not that invoice has been paid. Right from here, your project managers might stop and realize that they've got 3 payments that are still in a status of outstanding. This client has not necessarily paid their bills, for example. But that payment information is going to be critical to being able to see whether or not that profit is there. And again, those invoice dollar values will track back to that financial page there. Okay. In summary, the main thing that I really want you to take away from this is the 3 things that are going to be really critical to your conversation of profitability are going to be the estimates that you create at the beginning, those dollar values and those hours that you associate to the different tasks or the different services or the different expenses that you might be incurring over the course of this project. The next piece is going to be those actuals. Those are the real pieces of information. That's the real time. That's the real cost that's coming in from your side of the agency. Finally, the last piece is going to be that invoice piece, the ability to actually sync your invoices from Functionpoint to QuickBooks and have that payment information come back so that you're able to see whether or not this client has paid their bills and whether or not this project itself has been a profitable endeavor. Okay, we're going to open the floor to some questions. I know that there's some people that likely have some questions as to what they just saw, so we're going to open that up there and hopefully get some good questions come through. Okay, we have a question from Steve from Can You Create? Steve asks, how long does it take to update when somebody tracks time? I'm assuming Steve means how long do those actuals take to update within that financials piece or within the job health. Steve, to answer your question, that happens in real time. As people submit their durations or submit their timesheets or submit their weekly time tracking, that's going to update in real time so that the project managers are able to see the numbers go down in that project health and be able to see how much of that budget is being eaten, for lack of a better term. We have another question from Susan from Discover Design. Susan asks, what reports does Functionpoint have? Susan, that's a great question. Functionpoint has a number of reports that you're able to run to be able to see a couple of different things. Analytical reports are going to be able to help you drill into your agency, be able to see your profit, be able to see how you're doing in terms of that overarching estimated versus actuals or versus invoiced. We've got a number of different ones there. Beyond that, you're able to move into job specifics or client specific if you really want to. You can also run some plan reports, you can run time-based reports, but essentially every module of the system is going to be able to be reported upon so that you are able to drill into that system and be able to see how your agency is doing. All right, that wraps up the webinar for today. Thank you all for your time and for your participation. If there are pieces that you want to revisit or bring up with one of our consultants, we encourage you to visit us at functionpoint.com to book a demo. Once you submit that demo request, myself or one of my colleagues will happily be in touch to learn about those pain points that you're experiencing with within your agency, and ideally find a solution for you that's going to be able to give you some insight into the profitability of your agency. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day.